Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Maria Sheridan, and I'm a current MPH candidate as well as the TFC Brand and Marketing Chair. Today, for our Alumni Spotlight, we're talking with Rachel Taplinger. Rachel is a current strategic planning director at Nike, specifically focusing on sustainable manufacturing and sourcing. Rachel is a wealth of knowledge and has been in the social impact space for a majority of her career and has worked at various organizations. Rachel, thank you so much for being with us today. To kick things off, can you tell me a little bit about where you are?
So I work at Nike. I'm in global sourcing and manufacturing at Nike in a strategy role. And I kind of been in a sustainability slash strategy role, but my role kind of recently changed at Nike due to sort of reorganization. But I've been there for about 3 years. And I would say prior to Nike, I was working in sustainability at Estee Lauder companies and Revlon. So this is my kind of third job, if you will, after Owen. And I graduated in 2014. So it's been about, oh gosh, 7 years now, which doesn't feel like that long ago. But when I say it out loud, it's a lot longer ago than it feels.
Can you tell me a little bit about some initiatives Nike's doing or is about to undertake that you're really excited about?
There's a few. I mean, one of them is kind of on the circularity concept. So I'm currently working on kind of a strategy and an operational plan for what we're calling finished product waste. So it's both kind of unsellable inventory in our supply chain. So think, customer returns that maybe should go back to shelf, but don't end up back there and end up in our distribution centers, or, samples from factories, or, we have different grading criteria through quality. So you may, like an A grade you're selling, maybe something comes in at a B grade that's supposed to be an A grade. So it ends up as sort of like an unsellable, as well as taking kind of waste back from the consumer. So post-consumer waste and through kind of take back schemes. And right now we're trying to figure out, how we optimize sort of all of that product, waste from the consumer and unsellables in our supply chain to move it to higher value uses, to extend the life, to keep it out of landfill and incineration. And what are the partnerships and capabilities that we need to build to be able to do that, right? So there is an entire infrastructure around sort of recycling, and taking materials and breaking them down into their raw materials for reuse that requires a lot of investment, I would say, from the industry to be able to scale that. And those are some of the kind of challenges that we're working on, as well as like reverse logistics and how do you actually move this stuff around the world in a way that is more sustainable, because you don't want to just be like collecting old product and then shipping it everywhere, right? That is going to increase your carbon footprint and kind of be at odds with some of our other goals. So we're trying to figure that out right now. It's really complicated, but it's also incredibly interesting and exciting to see Nike kind of taking a firm stance in this space.
That's great. And, as a Nike consumer, I see the work that you all do, and I think it's fantastic. Whether it's climate change or if it's social justice, Nike, I've found, is always really out there voicing their opinion and standing by it. And I think that says a lot about the organization and what it stands for. Now, when you were coming to Owen, I know you had a history working in communications and education reform, but was something like social impact on your radar, or did you come in as an Owen student and you were introduced to it through Project Pyramid and you just kind of fell into the space?
I think so. I knew about sort of the, I guess, CSR space, which I don't really like to use that term, but I kind of knew about it from a communications perspective in undergrad. So I had an internship at a sort of cause branding, cause marketing firm in Boston called Cone Communications, that did sort of the communications around sort of CSR programs for companies. And that's when I first sort of heard of the concept of like leveraging the power of the private sector or business kind of for good as like a broader term, whether it be environmental or social. And I got really interested and excited about that. I don't think I knew how to pursue it or what that meant from a career perspective. And so kind of took a little bit of a meandering path to get there. Worked in communications right out of undergrad and then worked in education reform. So I think I went from like, do I want to do this from a comms perspective to let me go deep into like a social issue I care about and see, you know, how change can be affected there, but got a bit disillusioned with the public sector and felt like the maybe it's easier to do in the private sector. There's more funding, there's less red tape. I think I was a little bit naive in that, you know, there's challenges at any organization, but really wanted to approach it from a private sector perspective. And then I think kind of all of those things were in my head, but I didn't really know what that meant or how it could come to life. And I think seeing examples of that at Owen through my classes, through my internship, really kind of helped sort of codify that this is what I wanted to do and pursue. So I think I knew about it before, but kind of all the pieces came together at Owen to mm-hmm. tell me this is the area that I wanted to focus on, and kind of made that clear for me.
Can you tell me a little bit about why you chose Owen and what brought you to Vanderbilt?
I had sort of a mentor from my previous, my role before business school, who was from like Tennessee and like Mississippi area, and her and her husband, and they had been in New York for quite some time, but she had said like, have you thought about Vanderbilt? And I have a cousin who went to Vanderbilt undergrad. So I'd been there before. So I obviously knew it as a school and its reputation, but I hadn't thought about the business school. And she's like, you know, the business school is like doing a lot of great things. It's a smaller program. I think she even used the word like up and coming. You know, maybe that's a place you should look into. And so I did, and I applied just like, you know, I think I applied to 7 schools, and I was like, all right, it's on the list. And then, you know, when I got in and I visited and I went to, I think it was the Admitted Students Weekend. I really just like really connected with, the small like school feel, the community, the fact that kind of professors and sort of administration knew the students really well. I loved kind of the collaborative, but not cutthroat atmosphere. I loved Nashville. Like, I think I fell in love with Nashville, and I was like, this seems like such a great fit and combines a lot of the things that I'm interested in. And so I think once I got in and visited, it was like a done deal.
I think that's one of the beauties of Vanderbilt grad programs. I come from a really small program as well, but for me, that's meant that it's led to a really increased personalization. It's allowed me to really dip my toes into various things, join organizations like the TFC, and really find my niche. I know that at Owen, it's kind of the same deal. You know, they pride itself on the collaborative but not cutthroat mentality, and it's really a personalized approach for all business students. I know that you are one of the students that went to Cal Turner to help fund the TFC. So I want to know, you know, what made you go to Cal and have that conversation, and then also what was said and how did it go?
Going back in the vaults a little bit there, but yeah, Cal Turner had been a longtime supporter of Project Pyramid, as well as, and I think they still have it, like the Moral Leadership in the Professions program. That's through like all the graduate schools. So I'd done that program as well, sort of like an extracurricular, if you will. But yeah, obviously this is an area that he cared deeply about. And I was the president of Project Pyramid when I was at Owen. So we, you know, we're kind of always reporting to him in terms of, you know, our progress, student projects, kind of asking for more funding, right, as like a kind of to increase the longevity of Project Pyramid. And I think I can't exactly remember how the idea for the TFC came up, but I know that part of it was, you know, with the student turnover every year, essentially every 2 years, we wanted some way to be able to have kind of longevity or continuity in this space, and think about how we could expand beyond Project Pyramid into kind of the broader fields of impact that students were really interested in, and we had toyed around with like the class before me and even my class, like, and I think probably the class before that, of what that could look like, and hadn't really come up with something that actually like fit until sort of this kind of umbrella organization idea kind of was catalyzed. And myself and Kramer Schmidt, who's my friend from my class, who was I think he was like the vice president of Project Pyramid at the time. We kind of wrote the idea of like, wouldn't it be cool if, we had some sort of center or some sort of overarching umbrella organization where all of this could live. And I think also modeled after like many other universities that kind of had this structure already. So it wasn't a totally new concept by any means, but also a way to like have maybe a longer lasting impact of his kind of gift. And so I think we wrote the concept, and then actually I think it was the class after us who probably pitched it to him, Jake Hill. But I remember kind of working closely together to kind of come up with the idea and sort of what we wanted to do and how we wanted to move this forward beyond sort of, the little gifts like here and there around Project Pyramid, which was like a super awesome program, but kind of like a one-off initiative. But how do we think about scaling this and broadening it? And we also had Project Pyramid has had involvement from MPH students, from GPED students, from Peabody students, etc., Divinity School, for a while. But I think we also wanted to think about like, how do we engage the broader Vanderbilt community beyond just like the Owen community? And so, yeah, this idea was formed, and I did meet Cal once or twice. And he's definitely an interesting character. He's got a lot of personality, but is, super passionate about the center now and social impact and kind of leadership in this space. And I think, what Vanderbilt has been able to do with the TFC and with his kind of impact has just been pretty remarkable.
And my last question is, as an alumni, as someone that went to Cal Turner and helped create the center that so many Vanderbilt graduate students, whether it's a GPED student, a law student, a med school student, business school, student, so many of us love this center. What is your hope for the TFC going forward?
My hope would be that, one, the TFC continues to build on the amazing programming that they've done to date. So continue to have things like Summit and grow, the participation, grow kind of the, I would say, the kind of depth of knowledge and engagement in things like Summit and participation, maybe even outside of the Vanderbilt community. I think, further develop some of the other program areas. I know that there have been a few that like the TFC has tried and maybe decided it didn't work or kind of iterated on or continues to iterate on. So I think just continuing to build out its offerings. I think sort of another area that I know for me was lacking when I was at Owen that I know has grown since, but I would love to continue to see to grow is helping students in the career development side with careers in impact. And I know that that's definitely a focus area for the TFC, but to continue to build those relationships through alum, through companies, through organizations. And, I would hope that down the line, those organizations see like Vanderbilt students, especially TFC students, as a top place to recruit from for these types of roles. And there's kind of not just a push, but also a pull. So I think that is something that I would hope for as well, because I know that is something that, grad students, especially Owen students, maybe Owen students the most because it's business school, are like super focused on, and maybe want to work in this space, but feel like because that sort of recruiting path is a little bit less clear, a little bit more challenging, maybe seek out kind of other more traditional career paths. So just a way to make it easier for students and to continue to build those relationships. And I feel like that's definitely sort of a role that I take on as an alum, of wanting to give back to the community and help in any way I can in this space.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. As someone that has been a part of the TFC for the past year and has really, loved it, I want to say thank you personally for helping create this awesome space for so many Vanderbilt graduate students. But really, thank you again for taking the time to share your insights with us and always being willing to talk and share your experiences.